Welcome to Transforming Your Church, a series of short segments designed to show at your church board meetings so that you can look for God's ways to transform your church. In this segment, we want to talk about having a period in your worship service on Sabbath mornings called Celebrating Changed Lives, or just Changed Lives. You know, when your congregation gathers, they sing praises and they hear scripture reading and they hear good biblical preaching. And yet, many times we don't take a moment or two to celebrate what God is doing right within His body. If God is at work in the church, as He usually is and should be, then we ought to take a moment to celebrate it. Why not have a short little testimony from the front of how God has changed somebody's life? If somebody is about to be baptized that very morning, that's a great time for them to share a testimony of their own conversion, how God's brought them to that point. If they're a little nervous about it, they can write something out and read it themselves or have a friend read it. Or perhaps one of the church leaders can interview them and ask them, how has God brought you to this place in your life? And that way, when it comes time for the actual baptism, people know who they're voting into membership. And they're excited that God has transformed this person's life, and now they're seeing their old life be buried in the waters of baptism and come out to walk in a new life. Another time, you can focus your Celebrating Changed Lives on new leaders in the church. If you're bringing in a new ministry leader, a new church board member, a new deacon or deaconess, you can interview them and ask them, how has God brought you to this place where you want to serve Him in this ministry? And that can be a powerful testimony of how God is working to raise up leaders among your congregation, and the congregation is inspired to hear that. Other testimonies that you might have, and having someone interview, might be somebody who has just begun returning tithe for the first time of their life, and how they might be a little nervous about it, but they're taking that step of faith. And as they share about how God brought them to that decision, it encourages other people in the congregation to say, if they can trust God in that area of their life, then maybe I can trust God in that area of my life. And so having those simple, short testimonies, interviews or something read or written out, or people just sharing, it can energize your congregation and celebrate that God is alive and using your congregation. From there, people will go out from the church on Sabbath morning and begin telling their neighbors and friends the stories they've heard and inviting them to come and hear some more stories. So I challenge you to integrate into your worship services a 3 to 5 minute segment called Celebrating Changed Lives, and watch God lead and guide. You might just take turns as ministry leaders there of deciding who will lead out with the Celebrating Changed Lives segment of your worship service, or your pastor may work out a schedule. But whatever it is, you are in for seeing God do some remarkable things through the simplest of ideas to have a 3 to 5 minute segment on Sabbath morning, Celebrating Changed Lives.